Will Still, Fabian Hürzeler, Kieran McKenna, and Carlos Cuesta are some of those who have been making names for themselves in the top divisions of Europe. But there's one highly rated young manager taking a different route. Eric Ramsay, the youngest permanent manager in MLS history, has left behind opportunities in Europe to grow in the US. So who is Eric Ramsay? Why did he take a different route? And is it working out for him? Eric Ramsay grew up in Wales and quit pursuing being a professional player early on, going to Loughborough University where he was an assistant coach with Kieran McKenna and Matt Pestridge. At only 33 years old, he has already held positions at Swansea, Shrewsbury, Chelsea, Manchester United, and the Welsh national team before landing his first head coaching role. With such a wealth of experience in the UK, one would have expected Ramsay to get a head coaching role in the English pyramid, like his fellow university assistant coaches. In fact, Ramsay was offered the head coach's job at Blackpool while he was at United, but he decided against it. So why did he accept Minnesota's offer instead? In his own words, there are very few British coaches working at the top level of the British game. Part of the reason I wanted to come here was the objective data around the lifespan of MLS coaches. I didn't want to lose my first job. If you lose your first job, it's very difficult to get a second. It makes sense. MLS is a much safer environment for a young developing head coach with no relegation to force the hand of clubs wanting to make a quick change to turn around results. In MLS, Ramsay can experiment and learn without the insane amount of pressure that comes from managing in the UK or elsewhere in Europe. The culture difference in supporters in the US compared to England also helps. Ramsay said of Minnesota supporters, "Their existence doesn't depend on how well we're doing. There's a strong interest here, but it's in the context of interest of 5 other teams." In MLS, Ramsay can go through rough patches and have the opportunity to try to fix them without the pressure of getting fired immediately, like you might experience in the UK with a more pessimistic and impatient fan base. So what problems have Minnesota faced, and how has he tried to work out of them? Before Ramsay's arrival, Minnesota only had one manager in Adrian Heath since their expansion into the MLS, who had stable, if uninspiring, results. No striker scored over 10 goals in a season apart from Christian Ramirez, which is a while ago now. One of the biggest challenges in managing Minnesota is their spending. They have the 5th lowest wage bill in MLS, and this is a problem even when Heath was there, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better under Ramsay. So he's got to learn how to get the best out of the squad and get goals without a lot of resources. And he's doing that fairly well. In 2023, Minnesota finished 11th in the Western Conference on 41 points, 21st overall. Since being hired, Ramsay has brought them to 6th in the West in 2024 and now 3rd in 2025 on 52 points and 55 points respectively. He's done this primarily by being hard to beat. He came in, saw he doesn't really have that many goal scorers, but he has a good defense and a great shot stopper in St. Clair, and he's made great use of these, leading to only the 2nd least goals against, trailing only Philadelphia. They do this playing in a low block, this season primarily playing in a 5-4-1 or a 5-3-2, depending on the availability of Yeboah, who has been injured for most of the season. Now, they don't high press, they don't look to get the ball, they sit back in their block, and they don't even engage the other team until they get about 30 yards to their own goal. Then we'll see this outside midfielder come looking to press, the fullback with the wingback staying on whatever winger is pressing. And even if that winger isn't there, if the fullback is back there and the winger's up here, that's still going to be this outside midfielder's responsibility to press, with the wingback staying free in case there's a run in behind or something else, just keeping stability and not letting anything in behind them. And the forward's responsibility in this is really just blocking these pivot players. So if there's the one, Oluwaseyi for most of the season would just come and block whichever pivot player the ball was near, or if there's the 2, they would just block both the pivot players. They're not trying to pressure forward or force back to the keeper or anything. They just want to keep it from playing through the middle. They just want to force the opposition outside and keep them there. Their expected goals against is much higher than the amount they've actually let in, which would suggest that they're overperforming, But really, XG models have a hard time modeling when shots are taken at these blocks because of all the defenders in the way. So it ends up overvaluing a lot of shots. Now, I don't know exactly how they modeled the XG at American Soccer Analysis, but shots tend to get overvalued against a low block system, so that's all I'm going off of there. Tactically, low blocks are simple enough. You have the players block in, they get tight, they don't allow space between the lines, but mentally, it's really hard to coach players to do that, to have the concentration off the ball and ready when they get the ball to break forward, and to just be willing to suffer is a hard thing to convince players to do for 90 minutes. You need to spend a lot of energy off the ball defending and still have energy to break forward to create chances. And to create these chances, Minnesota usually used long, direct balls. In possession, Oluwaseyi will push up high, with the two outside midfielders becoming outside advanced 8s or less offensive 10s. And the wingbacks will get out wide, with the center defensive midfielders more or less sitting to create that stability. And depending on how they'll look to break out, the center backs will either stay in their 3 or they'll break to the side, with St. Clair coming up in possession of the ball. They do have the ability to play through the opposition, with players like Gressel, Ludd, and Pereira having a lot of quality on the ball, and they do move the ball with short passes to each other up the field on occasion. But what they usually do is just launch the ball up high, and they'll look to get Ludd and Pereira and Markanich, or if on the other side, Gressel, they get players in and around the forward to anticipate and try to win that second ball, and they play it very quickly out wide and will load the box with 2 to get a ball in while keeping the other players ready to prevent a counterattack. And that's one of the key elements of this system, is while they're breaking forward with enough numbers to try to make the most of the chance, they are having a very solid rest defense with the CDMs and the center backs staying back, and they're not going broke getting a goal. But it's also not just a mad dash trying to get the ball forward. They play the ball down in a sort of third man run that's repeated. It's intentional. It happens a similar way every time when they create their chances. And we can see this in action with in-game examples. This is a game against Austin where they're playing a 5-3-2. The ball was launched forward way back from St. Clair, with one striker looking to pin the center back and challenge for the ball. But we already see these two players, they're looking for where the ball is going to drop. So we have 1, 2, 3 here, and what they're looking to do here is a more chaotic version of the third man run. Player 1 is challenging, player 2 is going to look to pick up the ball, and player 3 will run inside behind the space. And here it is, player 1 won the ball. Now Pereira sees that the other forward is going to be player 2, and now he's starting his run into this space while the Austin players are all focused on this ball going here. He's already making the movement. It's so simple, but it's so effective. Pereira knows that the ball is going to find him in the flank, in the space, because it's practiced, it's repetitive. They all know what the plan is. Then, like we'll see with other examples, we have the 3 players crashing the box, with others staying back off frame here, and it's a great chance. This doesn't result in a goal, but this is how Minnesota create chances, and it's that way every time, just different variations of it. Another example from the game against Houston, here Markanich just won this ball, and it's going to one of the outside 10s here, and Trapp is already ready in the hole to receive it because he knows someone needs to be in that space. When someone up top wins the ball, someone needs to be in this space to receive. So now we can see again the third man run. Here's man 1 getting the ball. Here's man 2, and Markanich is the third man. Look, he's already moving into this flank. And we can see here he's playing it forward. Trapp's already sending it. He doesn't even need to take a touch to see where the space is because he knows where it is. They know where they're going to play the ball. And we can also see that these center defensive mids are in a great position should this not work out and it get countered. And again, we can see center defensive mid 1, center defensive mid 2. Markanich looking to run and get the cross in. And we see again, 1, 2, 3 players in the box, and this one does result in a goal. And we can see the quality of these chances by looking at the history of the shot maps since Eric Ramsay has been appointed. This is 2023 before Ramsay was appointed. We can see a good amount of shots are being had from out here, which isn't the greatest area to get shots from, and it's really just spread all over the box pretty evenly. I mean, it's in the center here, which is good, but we're not really getting focused, good quality chances. And we can see in 2024, they're still getting shots from outside, which isn't great, but we are getting darker colors in here, better quality chances as Ramsay's enforcing a new style of play. Until we get to 2025, where now all the shots are in this high value area around the penalty spot, which is exactly where you want them. It's exactly where Ramsay wants them, and it's exactly what they're trying to do, and you can see it from watching any of their games. And obviously we can't have any conversation about Minnesota chance creation without talking about set pieces. It's no surprise Eric Ramsay has put a great emphasis on set pieces, having been the set piece coach at Man United a few years ago under Erik ten Hag. And Ramsay has said that he's looked at teams in the Premier League like Brentford and other low-spending teams and see how they have used set pieces to great effect to punch above their weight. They take free kicks and long throws from far away, turning basically any ball out of bounds into a set piece and any ball from their own 40 onwards into an attacking set piece. More importantly, they get into the right positions for second balls and keep the play going into the second and third phase where they can continue to generate chances, not just off the first kick of the set piece. We could sit here all day looking at examples of Minnesota United set pieces, but I just picked this one from the game against Austin again. This is taken from inside their own 40. Most other teams would not see this as an attacking set piece opportunity, but Minnesota do, and they launch it forward. And once again, they're not necessarily looking to win it off the first ball and make that into the set piece opportunity. That's not what they're looking to do. You see everyone gathering up at the edge of the box here so that when Stuber does win this ball, it gets spilled back out. Then they're on to the second phase of the set piece where they win it and they're gonna look to work it out into this flank and get a shot off. And that's what they do. They're in the set piece opportunity, so everyone, all their big lads are already forward. They have people staying back to balance, and they're just looking to get this ball into the box. They get the ball in, Markanich rises higher than everyone else, and they get the goal. And Eric Ramsay has talked about the decision of prioritizing free kicks over trying to keep the ball. He said, "I think particularly when it comes to how we use throw-ins and deep free kicks, we probably give away between 5 and 10% of what would be very easy possession in order to be high value in those situations. If we wanted to have 47% of the ball consistently, we could do it like that. We just choose to use set plays in a different way." And this quote to me says a lot about Ramsay's mindset. He knows that they're giving away possession that they might be using, but he knows with the tools that Minnesota has, they're not going to make as much advantage of that extra 10% of possession as they will through these set piece opportunities. He's giving up possession to create value with the tools he has at his disposal. He's not afraid to adapt of the tools of his squad, and this becomes even more clear if we look at a quote from his university head coach. Not necessarily a high press, but looking for pressing triggers. We'd look for things that would trigger a press, so I would suggest he's a possession-based ball-playing type of coach. I would say that style would please Eric Ramsay. But what we're seeing at Minnesota could not be further from that. Minnesota have the fewest passes, second lowest pass completed percentage, longest average pass distance, and most passes against. This is not a team that's trying to possess. By looking at a graphic of their passes per defensive action and field tilt from American Soccer Analysis, we can clearly see that they have virtually no sustained dominance in the final third and defend in their own half. This is Minnesota over there, way in the corner, with a very low passes per defensive action, which indicates a lot of defensive actions and not a lot of passes, and the lowest field tilt in the league. And field tilt is just a representation of where they have control. So they have no control in the opposition's half, it's just their own. So this means they're doing a lot of defending in their own half. And if we take another graph from American Soccer Analysis, looking at passes per possession versus the average direct possession speed, we can see how direct Minnesota are, only slightly less so than Philly, which is fun because it shows two entirely different styles of direct play. Minnesota have absolutely no desire to hold the ball and are direct in any time they get possession. This shows one of the best aspects of Ramsay and why I personally rate him so highly. Despite preferring a high pressing possession-based system, he's gone completely opposite of that at Minnesota, not trying to force the way he wants to play, but being adaptable and willing to evolve throughout not only just this team, but throughout the season, something that he's going to have to continue to do. Because if we look at yet another graph from American Soccer Analysis of the rolling non-penalty goal difference, we can see the blue areas are good. That's where they're creating a lot more chances than they are conceding. So we can see that they were good throughout pretty much all of the season until it hits August, which is when the summer transfer window happened and they lost a lot of their best players. And they were bad for a very long period. But we can see that this trend line here, the goals conceded, or the XG conceded, is going down, while the XG generated is going back up. Although they lost a few players, Yeboah to injury and Oluwaseyi to Valencia, they did gain a few new attackers in Fitz and another top striker from USL. It's hard to immediately get these players to bed in, especially in this defensive system where, like I said earlier, you need the players to suffer. And it's hard to get a player to buy into that, especially an attacking one, immediately after coming in. So in the absence of strikers, Ramsay has had to do his best to adapt. After a bad first half against Colorado, Eric Ramsay decided to switch to a 4-4-2 with no strikers, with Ludd and Pereira up top, trying to get Ludd into more advanced positions, and they engaged in a high press. They got all the players forward, and I really couldn't believe what I was watching. But he did the same thing against Sporting KC, again going a 4-4-2 with no strikers, and it worked incredibly well. In the absence of any goal scorers, Ramsay is again trying something new, and it's again succeeding. Eric Ramsay has done incredible in Minnesota, and it should surprise absolutely no one that he's already gotten offers to coach back in the UK. And many people think that it's only a matter of time before he takes one of these offers, but I'm not so sure. Based on the comments that he's made, I think it'll take a really top side to tempt him away from the stability of Minnesota and MLS. And I might prove to be an idiot by saying that, but before any of that happens, Ramsay has an opportunity here, post-transfer window, to again solve problems hitting Minnesota and put them in the best position going into a playoff run. Regardless of where he goes and when he does it, his pragmatism and decision-making make me have no doubt that we are watching the beginning of the career of one of the best next managers in soccer.